So I will let everyone know that as usual, we will make a copy of the recording and the slide deck available for you in case you missed something or want to share with your colleagues. So rest assured, we will be sending that out after the event. Stepan and Tim have a lot to talk about. So put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and with no further ado, let's get started. Stepan, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thanks for doing the housekeeping. Today we have a lot to discuss, as Chris said. So I'm happy that Tim is joining me. Tim is field CTO here at Wallarm. He's the person who works a lot with the customers who knows what it is actually to protect APIs, discover APIs, test APIs from different perspectives. So feel free to ask any questions. Let's keep it interactive. If you have anything to ask, just shoot it away here. As far as I understand, there is just a panel. It's called Q&A, so you can just shoot a question. I will try to keep track all of them. If you watch it right now on LinkedIn, just use the comments, so we'll do this as well. My name is Stepan. I'm one of the co-founders here. And as Chris said, let's jump right into it. This is the agenda. So the way we want to structure this is to understand what are the key objectives for the security leaders in 2023 in terms of the product security, right? By product security, I mean everything related to protecting apps, APIs, microservices, and pretty much any other workloads, serverless workloads maybe. So this is a big scope as always, and 2023 is only getting bigger and larger. So there's a lot to discuss. And we talked with the guys, with Chris and team, what would be the main topics maybe, how we can unpack it. And we decided, hey, let's first of all keep it short, it's only 3. And we chose to start with supporting business strategy, because it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about making your business operate flawlessly and with the right SLAs, with the right guarantees to the users. So it's very important. Second one is managing risks. This is, at the end of the day, it's all about what do we do every day, and how we wake up every day, and do the work to make sure that everything is on track. And the third one is doing more with less. It's kind of a topic for 2023, really. Market's down. Everybody knows we're companies are in tough situation. Everybody wants to be smart and do much more creative stuff, to be more efficient. So let's talk what it can do right now today to maybe get something out of it. So those are 3 topics, and obviously there's a lot to unpack there. So let me start. I know that probably a lot of you already know Wallarm, and I see a lot of customers and our existing customers joining these webinars all the time. So thank you for supporting us. But for those of you who don't know Wallarm, so what do we do is integrated platform to protect apps and APIs. So we are the leader in 2 categories. One category is a WAAP, a WAAP, web application and API protection by Gartner. And we're also a leader in the API security space. So we are the leader by the G2, so you can go to this amazing website and read all the reviews by the real users. So this is something that people just write on their own, and that's actually a lot of inspiration for us to make our products better. But it's also a lot in a different way inspiration, because we see, hey, people really, really love our products, and the customer base we have is really phenomenal in a way that we work both with the kind of traditional enterprises, but also with one of the largest tech companies in the world, Dropbox and Miro. So we really, really like to be on the cutting edge of technology and support the cloud, multi-cloud, cloud native environments, massive scale of traffic. And this is one of the things we want to start this conversation today. So theme number 1 is supporting business strategy. And we talk a lot with the CIOs, CTOs, CISOs across the globe, and a lot of those conversations about the big shift in the way how the apps are delivered nowadays. So our GraphQL was a very rare thing, 5 years ago. Right now, I would say, I don't know, Tim, how often do you hear GraphQL nowadays?
A lot. It seems like every other customer is how do we protect GraphQL? How do you find SQL injections into SQL language? It's really an interesting place to be.
Yeah, GraphQL is just one of the example of it. And, we hear more and more GraphQL, gRPC, especially for the internal microservices. Our WebSocket is definitely not a new thing, but I think it's getting more and more momentum now. So apps are just like very different tech stack nowadays. And like, of course, they are not running, like on the bare metal anymore. So it's always a cloud environment. I would say like at least half of the customers we see and the prospects we're talking with are using Kubernetes. So like, service mesh, Kubernetes, sidecars, like all those things I hear it's reality. And obviously when you're looking for a solution to protect your apps and APIs, you must be sure that there is something that you can use and to support your, cloud and digital transformation of the company. So as a company, Wallarm, like we actually committed to make sure that it can be running across the globe, across the board. So it can be multiple regions of the cloud environment. It can be multi-cloud. Let's say you're using AWS and GCP, who would be able to protect workloads across those multi-cloud environments. If you are into Kubernetes, congrats. Kubernetes is hard, but apparently like it's actually very easy to deploy application and API security layer with the help of Wallarm. So like our thesis and like our philosophy is basically whatever workloads you have, APIs, apps, wherever they are running, like multi-cloud or cloud environment, or maybe private data center, and regardless of what kind of threats you're facing, and frankly, you're probably facing all of the spectrum, so we're committed that we can provide the protection. We'll talk more about that. Theme number 2 is managing risk. So like here's like a lot to unpack here. So let me start with a way, like in the kind of trends that we observe. Chris is on the call here. So like what Chris is doing like a lot is different kind of analysis of what kind of threats we see specifically for the APIs. And threat stats report is something that we publish quarterly and annually. Maybe Chris, can you just give you like the most important fact, like just one out of the threat stats report about like what do we observe as the evolving threats across the APIs?
Yeah, what we're seeing right now is injections are a majority of the vulnerabilities in the API space, and that the time to remediate has shortened from weeks to days to hours. And I think both of those are key to your vulnerability management in the API space.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people will argue, like injections and APIs, how those are related. But in reality, when we analyze all the CVEs out there, when we see what are the attacks across our customer base, SQL injections and different kind of injections, frankly, it's not only SQL injection, but SSRF and others are still a majority of the attacks and probably the most impactful ones. Anyway, everything is in motion. So like when 5 years ago, we were talking about like, what are the vulnerabilities for the web apps, how to protect against scrappers and bots, like nowadays we talk about like the wider spectrum of things. There are new category, OWASP API security, which covers the threat specifically for the APIs. There are different kind of API abuse kind of things. We'll talk more about this because APIs apparently are very easy to abuse. They are developed to be consumed by the software. So like for bots, it's kind of a no-brainer. Hey, like if there's an API to give me something, some kind of data, why can't I just automate something and like can abuse it in different ways? So it's a big challenge. Different kind of leakages, as if you see from the different kind of news headlines right now, like it's a thing. Unfortunately, there's like a lot of leakages out there, like a lot of secrets are leaked, which result in the major data breaches. So like there's a lot of things happening there. And one of the new topic actually about it, this is what I hear a lot from CISOs nowadays, is the different kind of risks related to no code and low code. There's so many stuff out there that can help you facilitate creating your, almost no code environment, different kind of internal apps, or even, create a API backends with a very limited coding, which is amazing and phenomenally helpful, to supercharge your internal teams. But in reality, nobody's really taking care of security there. It's kind of Wild West, really. And like, there's a lot of things related to the API security out there. So like, we'll talk more about this. One of the graph I just wanted to show really quickly is the number of vulnerability and exploits that are growing. This is from the threat stats report. So you can see they keep increasing. And the funny thing, when we analyze the CVEs and then we look for those exploits across the events that we see across our, for our customers, we see that in many cases, those vulnerabilities are being exploited even before the CVE is actually published. So like this is a thing. So kind of like the takeaway here is that it's not enough to use any kind of signature-based solution that always trying to, catch up with the CVEs and etc. So you need to have some kind of security products in place that actually can identify those threats even before exploits are published, CVEs are published. And there is a lot to uncover there. Just want you to know that this is a fact. We just see this across the board. What is the time increase, by the way? Like I think it's like 7 days on average before CVE is published. We'll already see this exploited in the wild.
Yeah, the last set of data were about 3.5 days before on average, and the median is somewhere around 1 day. So, and those are the ones we know about. Of course, the ones that aren't being documented, we don't know about. So it just tells you that you really need to be paying attention to the vulnerabilities. As Ricardo says in the comments, he's seeing a huge increase in horizontal privilege escalation in APIs, especially when using JWTs. So that's another example of what we're talking about here.
Thank you, Chris. With that being said, we believe that it's not only important to detect those things, but also remediate them and mitigate them in real time. So Tim, maybe you can unpack it.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's important here is there's really two pieces to this puzzle. And I could probably think of 3 or 4 more, but let's just talk about these two. The things that you can control, and then the things that you can't control. So our product is twofold. And what we want to be able to do is with our product is to be able to detect issues in the environment that you can control and block those issues. And then the second piece of the puzzle is how do we protect ourselves? How do we look for things that are out of your control? One of these things that we see a lot is tokens in GitHub that may be from, say, a third-party consulting company. How about a breach at a third party and you see a supply chain issues coming in through leaks from third parties? There's all different types of things that are out of your control, which are a bit scary, especially in the security space. If they're outside of your control, what can we do about them? And we've really developed a product that we believe covers both things in your control as well as things outside of your control in very different ways, depending on how we're implemented.
Totally. I think it's a good segue to the idea of that basically we need to manage the attack surface. And let me start here with this kind of mind-blowing number, 1.7 billion of active APIs by 2030. So like the number is growing. And when we talk about the APIs, we're not only talking about publicly facing APIs. They're like a huge part of APIs that are private, really internal. In many cases, those are microservices. There is a growing number of partner APIs, the APIs that are typically used by different kind of tech companies, or maybe not even tech companies, to communicate with each other, which uncover a whole new spectrum of the vulnerability. So like what we see a lot is that, for example, there is a customer and they consume an API from a bank, a really, really big bank. And when we ask them, like, do you guys have any control of what you consume from these APIs, even from the trusted party? It turned out like in many cases, there is nothing out there. People just like trust and rely. They say, hey, this is a big bank after all. Like, why shouldn't we trust data that is coming from there? But in reality, that may be a lot of cases when those results from the APIs can be malicious in different ways. So partner APIs is an important topic. But more importantly, and this is what I want to cover, is the idea of the so-called API discovery and posture management. So it's really, really hard to know, like, what are the APIs do you even have? So like this kind of funny questions, if you want to make people laugh or smile, in most cases, you just come to the meeting and you ask, hey, how many APIs do you have? And if you talk with the technical people, they always be laughing and smiling because they know nobody really knows like how many APIs we have, maybe hundreds, thousands. And even if somebody gives an answer like, hey, I think it's, well, let's say like 1,000, there's a follow-up question by saying, hey, how do you know? Like, how do you trust this? Like, where are you getting this number from? And somebody will tell, hey, it's actually like we have everything in our API management, like we're API gateway. So like you see, there is a full list of APIs. So maybe I'm looking into the docs and this is the list of the APIs. So here are the things. So first of all, like a lot of APIs are not really managed, meaning they are not configured by the API gateway. Some dev team just publish it and it's out there. It can be consumed. It may be in production and it's not even managed by your API management. What Gartner is saying is that less than 50% of the APIs will be managed actually by 2025, already in 2 years. So, but even if we don't even count this managed versus unmanaged, nobody really knows what are the APIs, what are the versions of APIs out there. So which makes this API discovery thing a very important thing. We'll talk about this and team will uncover a lot of stuff related to the API discovery and posture management. You just need to know what to protect. What are the APIs? Which of them internal, which of them are exposed, which of them carry sensitive data, which of them are vulnerable. And as a result of it, you would at least know like which of the APIs you need to care first, which is an important thing. And this is just like a big challenge for pretty much everybody in 2023. And it will be even more challenge soon. So like, especially with this no code, low code kind of things, explosion of the platform, which allow you to create backends for the API. So it will be even a more challenging thing to think about. I don't know, team, if you want to cover anything here or add anything, we'll probably have a lot of other places to talk about the discovery.
Yeah, I think you did a good job on this one and covered most of it. I don't really have a ton to add there.
Yeah, totally. But just a few things to add here. Like some of the terms that we're using are shadow APIs, rogue APIs, zombie APIs. So like, what is a shadow API? This is the API that exists. It can be consumed by your users, and nobody in the company really knows what's that. Nobody is keeping updating this. And you would be surprised maybe like how it is possible. So the larger companies, the more probably you have something like this. So like it's a very, very common thing that we see across the board. Sometimes the API is known, but it has 7 different versions. And you see that like 4 of them are actually live. And it turned out like at some point it was not possible to sunset some old version, like to make, let's say, mobile clients compatible with the APIs, this kind of stuff. There's always something that keep you just sunset the old versions and release the new one. So at the end of the day, like you have one API endpoint and it has like 4 different versions and they're all live. And you know what? Developers only updated the latest of them. So like all the previous versions are they're out there. They're available to everyone, the good guys, bad guys, and nobody's taking care of them. There can be an enormous amount of vulnerabilities out there and nobody really taking care of it. Another question, a more kind of compliance thing, but not only compliance, like, do you know which of the APIs really handle sensitive data? So where the bad guys will go and try to find anything lucrative. So like, apparently it's not an easy task. So like, it's good if you can have a catalog and not only, today, but actually having an up-to-date catalog of APIs every single day and like make it sure that it's shareable across the org. So that everybody knows like, hey, these are the set of APIs that are, let's say, should meet the PCI compliance because they carry the data for the credit cards, etc. And the third bucket here is just also very important, different kind of issues. And we'll talk more about the issues, but different kind of misconfiguration related to authentication, or authorization, or different kind of CVs. There's a lot to unpack there. So like you really need to have API posture management in place. And this is something we also can help you here. So we're just an example, we'll show the demo, but like when you use the product like Wallarm, you actually have a full inventory of all the APIs. You see which of them are changing, you see which of them are more active, you see which of them are attacked really, and which of them are maybe not attacked. And as a result, you also see the risk score, If the score is like 8, 9, 10, you just need to run and do something around that. Like if the score is like 3, 2, 3, you probably can put it in the backlog and prioritize it in a less timely manner. But anyway, the important thing here is kind of take away for you is that you need to have a framework of thinking about it. If you have thousands of APIs, there's just like no way you can go and cover everything right away. You need to prioritize. I need to explain why these APIs, or like not APIs, by the way, it can be apps and APIs, why they are more serious, like why they require more attention. So it's good to have some kind of framework in place. And it's also good if you can configure the risk scoring approach. I'll talk more about this a bit later. Protecting the user accounts is the next big topic. So one of the things I wanted to start with is different kind of API leaks and secrets. If you go to let's just like a random screenshot we did right before the webinar, but basically, if you look for the news related to the different kind of API secret leaks, you would be amazed. There are companies out there which are very well-known companies, and we know for sure that actually they have a very solid security teams. But even in this setup, there are still a few pretty significant breaches, so to say, related to someone making a stupid mistake by exposing secrets, for example, like the key to access the API into the public repository. So like what the bad guys can do is they can just crawl all the GitHub, try to find anything related to your company in a way of a secret, and then try to leverage it. Unfortunately, it's more common than uncommon. We actually have a special module now, we call it proactive API leak management, where the company and the customer can ask, hey, I'm a customer, this is my domain, so can you just go there, look for different kind of API secrets that might be leaked before. And what we'll try to do is analyze the dark web, but also different kind of publicly available platforms like GitHub or maybe other, just to find what are the secrets that may be leaked, or maybe what are the accounts that compromised, because at the end of the day, this is what we discuss here, like how to protect your users, right? And they also how keep track if somebody is using those click credentials. So that's an important topic to discuss. So we actually have it, we released it early in the year as a part of the early access program. So it's more or less available to everyone right now. So, and just as a teaser, you also can just go to us and sign up for this kind of report. If you want, maybe this is the first step in the direction of API security. If you want to start with something in 2023, maybe this is a thing, come to us, we do this free assessment, and let's start talking, what's your challenges, and I will do this report, and let's start from there. Kim, do you want to add anything here, by the way? So maybe a few things. I know you like this topic.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is I like to think of this as a second set of eyes, and I say that a lot throughout our product is there's no way that any one person or any human team can go be looking at everything that's going on with your digital properties. And so this is just another set of eyes that are rolling through the internet, looking for things that probably you don't want out there. And if we find them, we let you block them and remediate them, which is the big thing, right? Is great now if I can see it, but if I can't block it, what's the point of seeing it? It's good that I see it and then I need to do something with it. But the remediation is just as important as everything else, because you don't really want your accounts to be compromised. And rolling right into this slide, right? Protecting these accounts are becoming harder and harder. APIs make this so much easier to go and try to find problems with accounts.
Yeah, totally. And the proactive API leak detection is something that is recently added, another new thing that we are, not new thing, but the thing that we keep updating is different kind of security controls to protect you against account takeover and different kind of credential stuff and attacks. I'll unpack it. But before that, just wanted to show this slide from Forrester. It's kind of funny because they put these two things together in their report by saying where you should invest in 2023. And different people think different things about analysts, but I think that this specific report from Forrester is pretty good actually. two areas of investment that every security leader should think about is it's not only two, by the way, like it's only two on the screenshot, just to make sure it's clear, but these two on the screenshot are API security and in-bot management. So like, and in reality, I think they are very related to each other. So like, you can't really protect your APIs if you don't have any bot management and bot mitigation capabilities in the product. And another way around, like you can't really blame that, and I say that your sophisticated bot management solution if you only can protect applications. And this is a big thing because we see this a lot. There are like a lot of products out there in the bot management space that are really not equipped to protect APIs, and we'll talk more about it. So like, these are the key areas for investment, and we tend to agree with Forrester. So like, this other thing. I think that's a good segue actually to our API abuse capabilities. So maybe Tim, can you unpack it?
Absolutely. Bots, and more bots. I think as APIs get popular or have become more popular, the bot mitigation has become almost a necessity for any website that has APIs exposed. And this is, something that's difficult. It's not for the faint of heart. We spent a lot of time looking at billions and billions of lines of traffic through our customers to really drive and understand how these bots are working, how we can help our customers. And then really more importantly is, how do you visualize them to the customer? Because it's easy to have a line that says you've got a bot and we're blocking it. It's really hard to go, and what data did we block it on? And with all the different ways that we're detecting and all the different features and detectors that we have, it's really hard to understand and get a visualization of, well, why did you block it, right? That's always the question that we get from customers is, great that you blocked it, but why did you block it? Are you sure you should have blocked it, right? And that's what we've really tried to expose with the graphs that we've brought into our bot management platform. The group has done a really great job of visualizing that, really taking a three-dimensional slice and slicing it down three different ways with colors and dots. And then we've got also a more higher level one across the sites that are really looking at how many IPs are being blocked based on the detectors. So it seems like every 2 weeks the group surprises me in bringing some more stuff out, which is it's just a lot of fun, and it's good to see the product continuing on its journey. And I don't think it'll ever stop, right? You can't stop APIs. You can't stop looking at bot protection because they're always changing, and it'll always continue to be changing.
Yeah, when we talk about API security, like in many cases, people talk about OWASP API security Top-10. So like, I think API abuse in different fashion is covered in different kind of OWASP API security, both BOLA, but also like API 9, like improper asset management. So what are the examples of those API abuse? Just like curious, like to put very specific things here.
Yeah, account takeovers are a big one. If you think about credential stuffing, low and slow attacks, right? These are ones that will affect your customers very, very specifically. I know in the retail world, account takeovers are prevalent. They were looking for those accounts that have credit cards on them, buying gift cards. Spent a lot of time chasing those when I was in retail because they'd buy the gift cards and then use them immediately for purchase. And so it was really hard to track if things got turned around very quickly and the customers didn't know that something happened on their credit card account. Layer 7 DOS attacks, we see high request volumes, and we can we've added request shaping or rate limiting to our product so that you can slow down these types of attacks and not let a particular attack really take over the product. And then, scanning and scraping, you've got those are the typical ones that people trying to scrape your data or scanning your website, like with a security scanner. And we've got all of those types of detections that you can actually specify, and we'll show you that in the demo.
Thank you, team. I I know that we have only 27 minutes left, so like let us uncover this theme 3 really quickly, and then we'll jump into the product demo. Doing more with less, I think this is kind of maybe a cliche, and it was always a cliche. Now it even more something that more and more people are talking about. But I don't think we have another choice, frankly. So like we really need to be more effective across the board. It's not only related to security, but across all the functions in the company. So like security is definitely a thing where we can try to simplify things at least. Like the tool sprawl is crazy. They go and talk with the product security leaders, with the security leaders. They will tell you crazy number of tooling they have. This number 11 API specific security tooling. Organization use on average. I don't know. If you ask me what are the 11 API specific security tools, I probably wouldn't even give you 11. But this number is fascinating to me. There's a huge span related to the security solutions. A lot of them are really overlapping, as we see. A lot of them are not deployed from many perspectives. A lot of them are not effective because they're not deployed properly or not integrated. For example, a lot of API security products out there would require you to integrate into the WAF or API management system to mitigate the attacks because they don't have any inline mode. And apparently what we learn a lot actually is that like many cases companies don't really put the proper integration in place, and they like the mitigation capabilities. So one of the things is I like to show this slide, the evolution of API security. So like everybody know what is WAF, application firewall. And I think there's evolution of WAF being transformed into the WAP, like the second A is the API. And the vendors do a decent job of adding support for the API protocols. Still, they operate in many cases like a WAF. And there's a new category, which is API security. And people typically talk about API posture management, API discovery, API security testing, and API threat prevention, like specifically focused on API specific threats. So you don't really need to buy both of them. Like our philosophy here at Wallarm is that, hey, should be one unified platform. We call it integrated platform, where you basically have a module for the WAP and you have all the capabilities of API security. So like you don't need to have any additional glue to put those products together, especially because they overlap so much. It should be one unified product with all the capabilities are out of the box. So this is our philosophy, which we believe in. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Wallarm product offering, we basically have two solutions. One is cloud native WAP, like another way of thinking as a WAF, are very scalable, super accurate, both on the false negatives and false positives, a very low level of noise and a lot of connectors. So like people really, really love it. And another product is API security. I would call it advanced API security, which includes API discovery, API threat prevention, and API security testing. So like this is what do we believe a lot? Like you should be able to consolidate whatever products you have out there, make it easier. You don't need different products for different clouds. You should have one that is working across the board. You shouldn't have like two categories which overlap a lot. It's easy just to replace it with one unified platform. And in our case, like advanced API security would replace a set of competitors. The web part would replace a set of other competitors. So like it's really, really a way for you to make it easy for the team to onboard, to deploy, to scale and monitor it, but also like to save on licenses. You don't need to buy two products where you can buy only one platform. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, it will be the coverage for everything that you have out there. We can talk a lot about how it can be reduce the noise and workloads. I think just a good time to switch maybe into the demo mode and talk more about like what is the typical workflow if you're a security leader, if you're a practitioner. Maybe I'll stop sharing at this moment, team, and then just pass the baton to you.
Sounds good. I know we've got a bunch of questions. I think we're going to try to sprinkle those in through the demo if we can. Chris, if in a relevant spot as we go through the demo and can find them, let's sprinkle those in and get some of those answered as we go along. So we'll try to go pretty quick. API discovery is the first thing we're gonna talk about. When you talk about understanding what is in your portfolio of things to protect, API discovery is a great place to start. So as a security leader, I want to understand how many endpoints. And so I saw a question about endpoints. I saw a question about, well, how do I know how many endpoints do I have? At Wallarm, we've asked that same question many times, and this one is one that we like to talk about. We've actually got endpoints by number, and these are actually categorized by risk score. Risk score is all about what happens when if that particular endpoint would be compromised, what would happen. And so you'll see here that we've got 31 endpoints that have a high risk score. High risk score you can see here as well. On the top endpoints, these are sorted by hits right now, which is attacks. You can also sort them by risk score. So this will give you a good overview of what is a high risk. So this is an overview of what's going on, all the different types of data that you have, how many times we see those particular pieces of data. It's a high level view of what a manager or a CISO might want to see when somebody comes down and asks the question, well, how many APIs are you securing? Well, we can tell you, we've got 200 plus APIs here, 275 endpoints that we are actually protecting. 245 of those are external and 30 are internal. And I know that was one of the questions that I heard or saw through the LinkedIn slides.
So Tim, Mohammed was asking, how can you check for shadow or ghost APIs?
Yeah, so those are typically let's define shadow as an API that is out there but doesn't have a API spec to them or isn't documented. We look at your Swagger documentation and we look to see which ones aren't in your Swagger documentations and compare that to our Swagger documents that we created and show you the differences of them. That's how we typically will look for shadow APIs that are out there that nobody knows about.
Great.
So the other thing that's really nice, and we're going to dig into API discovery, is when we look into API discovery, there's lots of data here. And if you're a compliance folk, you're always being asked is what changed and when, and what data do I have where? And our API discovery can tell you all of that information about the requests and what we're seeing. I actually like to look at the riskiest ones. So if we look for that high risk APIs, and then I like to just look to see what's going on. So if these are being attacked, so here's one that's being attacked right now, and these are being attacked by Ebola, iterating through and looking for ways that it can maneuver around authentication, some path traversals. So we can go back and forth to see what's being attacked and why for those particular endpoints, which is really nice. And then we've also got change control. So we know when things were changed, we know when they were updated, and we let you know what was updated and when, as well as the sensitive data and the type of data that are in those values. And so it's a really good way for compliance folks to be in here looking at the APIs and what data, and really where they might want to go ask more questions to the developers or to the business as to why do we have this data on this API? So lots of great information on APIs. No, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a good question from Arzu. In case of custom APIs, what are security checks should we have in place? So this might be a good place to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know that custom APIs are different than third-party APIs. I treat them the same. I think the question is how much testing are you doing on your own APIs, and then how much testing are you doing on third-party APIs? Really don't look at them very much differently depending on where they're being hosted. So, really what you have to figure out is what the supply chain looks like. What data are you getting? Data's become part of the supply chain, right? When I 10 years ago, supply chain, and it was really about how do I get a good or service from here to there? Well, data's become that good in service now. And so We actually have a lot of customers proxying requests to supply chain providers, so third-party providers, to get data through our product, and look for third-party issues with third-party requests, as well as getting them, as well as looking at them on the way back as well. So the answer is I don't know that I treat them a ton differently, because malicious data can be anywhere. And that's what we're finding with our customers, is that malicious data is really, really everywhere. And a legal agreement is great, but if I can make sure and test that to another level or extent by being in line, that's just another way that we can be sure of that protection.
And then to follow up on that, Shivram asks, can we identify how many dynamic and static API endpoints there are in any web app? Is there a tool for that?
Yeah, and this is really, so the dynamic and static is dependable on what you mean by dynamic or static. So we have a lot of both in this process. Most of the dynamic ones, I think, is the ones that are changing frequently with GUIDs in them, which you will see here that we actually fold up as parameters. So this has actually got many, many different APIs behind it. But we're folding those up because we realize that, hey, this parameter is changing. It is probably a variable that's dynamically being created. And we can actually show you the difference of those in the product. I'm not sure that it matters a ton how many dynamic versus static. It's really about the data as well as about the parameters. But we use these parameters to really look for BOLAs. Those that change frequently or have variables in them are really the ones that are dynamic that we look at for some of the authorization, auth-z, auth-n type of attacks. And then moving on from there, we've got a couple of different threads. So this was really more compliance and CISO to understand the data that's inside the attacks. Looking from an operations standpoint, if I'm getting woken up at night, I want to know what's going on very quickly. I usually start at the dashboard. I look for any incidents that might be up. These incidents are APIs that are being attacked that have known vulnerabilities. And so we look at these. So you'll see this one has a vulnerability. Let's see what that vulnerability is. This one happens to be a Log4j CVE 2021 44228, which is a Log4j remote execution. Most security folks know full and well about all of the Log4j issues. So this is a great one to see. We show you how to reproduce it. And then the response to get to those reproductions, and then we show you where we found it. We have marked this one as high risk. You can change the risk in this if you want, close it or mark it as false. But really, it's all about who's attacking it and are they being blocked. And so since we're in monitoring mode for this API, these are actually going through, which is how we have our demo environment set up. But we can dig down very deep into the packets. We do base 64 decode everything, headers, bodies. We actually will base 64 decode and then a payload, and then base 64 value, base 64 decode a value as well. So we go very deep into these packets to look, or into these headers and the data to look for vulnerabilities. In this one, you can see we're trying to manipulate the JNDI string here. And change where it's sending its LDAP information to try to get in. So, that's a very typical flow of how a security operator would very quickly get to what's going on and what's broken. And since we were talking about API abuse, let's do that while I'm here. So let's look for some API abuse attacks. And here you'll see we actually come up with some API abuse attacks. These were the pictures that you were seeing. Here they are in real life. The great thing about this is it gives you lots of data. So we believe that this is an API abuse bot. They're getting tripped on a number of detectors. and we give you kind of the templates of what they're trying to hit. We show you the performance, basically how fast are they going per session. We give you behavioral analytics of what is the behavior of that bot, how many detectors, the score of the suspicious behavior, and then whether or not we're seeing any business logic abuse. And so the bubble size as well as the color do depict two different things. That's the suspicious behavior and then the business logic abuse. And the number of detectors here again is on the side. And then last but not least is HTTP error rate. And then these also pull in the unsafe methods as well as request variety, which is, am I doing the same request over and over and over again? Or am I have a variety of requests across the platform? And then we've got lots of things that we can talk about. Once you get added, once you've really hit on the API abuse, and we think that you're a bot, what you'll see is you'll actually go on the gray lists. And so we can see that here. These are actually telling me how many IPs that we've added to the gray list. We don't have any on the deny list right now. Otherwise, we'd block ourselves. So we just put them on the gray list, which are treated a bit differently. And then here we can click on any one of these to understand what IPs were involved in those particular incidents. So let's just grab one of these and we'll click on it. So these are all the IPs that were put on the gray list due to that particular bot and the detectors that were found together. So this is we give you the user agent, the request per second, or request per session, request per second, and then the status codes and the posts or in the methods so that you can kind of see what it's doing. It allows you as a user to get more detailed in information. This is what we're trying to do, is not take our word for it, right? We want you to have the data that you need in order to look at it and understand, is this a bad bot or is this not a bad bot? So lots of things that we can do here. Lots of data in here that you can take a look at, and more stuff comes out like every 2 weeks. The product group is really great at bringing out new features quickly. And then, like we talked about, API leaks. These are really where your private information is out in the public. So we're scanning a couple of dozen different public properties, like this one particular is Postman. How many times do you find an API in a public Postman that is not intended to be in a public Postman? And more likely than not, it's probably not your own organization. It's possibly a third party or a consultant that accidentally put it out there and didn't realize it. And so we give you a way to take a look at those. We give you the source for that, and then can help you remediate that if necessary on those leaks. Here you'll see email and password pairs. So if an email and password pair is directed at your own URLs or digital properties, we'll show you how to, or we'll tell you about that and then give you a brute force that you can apply there. And then we've also got, we also searched GitHub. So we found these secrets in this GitHub. And here we would apply a virtual patch and block these if we see them. We block these on the outside so that you have time to go figure out what these are on the inside. And then we should probably get those changed because more than just your own organization, if we found them, are going to be using them. Another thing to know is we've got lots of triggers, many triggers. We can customize these triggers. These triggers are based off integrations. We've got a large set of integrations from messengers to seams and SOARs to log management. We've added a new one recently, AWS S3. And so this one's going to become very popular here very quickly, where we're basically taking all of our attack data and throwing it out to Amazon for you to be able to pull into your data pipelines and look at the data that we're seeing. And those tie into these triggers where when you create a trigger based on the trigger that you're using, you can add a reaction and send it to wherever you would like. So that's really how those integrations work. So what did I miss, Stepan?
Did we show the OWASP dashboard, by the way?
Oh, we didn't show the OWASP. It's right there in front of me, 2 of them even, and I still missed it. Man, I knew I was going to miss something. So this is our OWASP API Security Top 10 2023. We also have a 2019. This is there, and this is really good for showing to your bosses as well, right? So you can take a picture of this every week or every month and send it to the CISO and say, hey, here is how Wallarm sees us based on what they can see. We have 3 different things in each category. One is are the security controls that should be applied for this security threat or that particular API section is applied. How many vulnerabilities are we seeing, and then how many attacks are we seeing that are broken into that particular chunk of the OWASP API Top 10. So we've got that across the board. It's a very interesting thing to see. Customers like it because you can go right to the hits. So we can actually just hit. So you'll see all the RCEs for this particular one that are trying to attack those logins. So here you'll see these are trying to attack login, which is that OWASP API. I think I grabbed through broken user auth. So what we're showing you is everything that's attacking user logins, be that what they may, and really showing you where those are being attacked so that you can go and look at them to make sure that they're not compromising those in any way. So that's how our OWASP API Top 10 list works. You can see the vulnerabilities here as well. And then those vulnerabilities are broken up into the each individual category.
Yeah, I'm glad we actually released it, because OWASP API security is an amazing framework of thinking, and it covers all this type of threats. But in reality, you read it, and then you have a question like, so now what? Like, where should I start? Like, what is the current state? Where should I focus my engineering security team? And it's really hard to apply it. So I think this kind of dashboard not only give you understanding of where you are right now, but like how it's evolving. So it's actually pretty helpful to put this API security OWASP framework into the motion, like getting things done.
Yeah. It kind of takes the high level and just puts it into something that you can physically go and implement. Like, great that you've told me about all this stuff, but what do I do with it, right? That's always the question is, great, I've got all this stuff, now what? And the API is a great list, like you said, and then it's just, okay, now what? And this is the now what picture is what I call this.
Totally. Chris, do we have any more questions? Maybe
we have a lot of questions. Let's try to get through a few of these quickly. And sorry, I'm going to butcher some of these names. My apologies in advance. SciCat asks, does it also support rate limiting?
Yeah, we added rate limiting. Yeah. So in our rules section now, we can actually go and implement rate limiting on a large number of things, but anything that can be identified in the request, whether that's in the payloads or not, we can actually add to our request processing and set a rate limit where you can set request per second, request per minute, burst response codes when they hit that list. And then you can tell it how to know when. You can actually go very deep into where you want to put that rate limit. So absolutely.
Yeah. So like, it's very granular in a way that you can't really do with a load balancer sometimes or API gateway, because you can rate limit based on the value of some specific field. And that's amazing, because that's not what everybody else is doing. We can afford doing this because we have deep API request inspection. We inspect the payload of API call anyway, so we can apply a rate limit on top of it. But it's not a typical feature you would have even with the API management systems. Chris, is there anything else there?
Yep. And so Andrew asks, please explain what is virtual patching? What kind of code is this?
Virtual patching, I can cover this quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is a very powerful tool, and at the very same time, it's a very easy concept. So basically, can define what kind of payload or part of request you should consider to be malicious, so that you can block it in real time. So we don't use signatures for attack detection, but virtual patching is a kind of signature that you can create by yourself if you know that there is an existing vulnerability. So you can cover your existing apps and APIs and have some more time to patching it while applying this patch. So basically you can say if there is something in the request that consists this kind of malicious payload, then I just want to block it. And this is a very known concept, like from the WAF era, and we implement it because still it's a pretty powerful tool to have sometimes.
All right, we have time probably for one more. So another question in here was, can you talk about the arbitrary file upload download issues and how to mitigate them? And that's from Srinavis. I know I said that wrong, sorry.
Yeah, we probably need to unpack like what specifically you mean there, but we also can inspect, like when somebody is uploading the binary data, like we don't provide inspection, for different kind of AV analysis, for instance, but there are a few things we can do that. So like, if you want, just reach out to us and we'll discuss specifically what I mean here.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot there to unpack. So depending on what you're doing, will depend on how we would handle this. Absolutely.
All righty. Well, we're at the top of the hour. And so I want to thank everybody who's joined us, and especially everyone who put in their questions, and a special shout out to, and again, apologies in advance, Sukan, for sharing his knowledge around API security. So great community we have going here. Stepan, you want to talk a little bit about what folks can download to further educate themselves and learn about what they should be doing?
We just updated our API security checklist. We added a few new items there, but we also added the sandbox, like different kind of vulnerable APIs you can use to train your team, not only security team, but the engineers. And we also added a few API security trainings, are a good foundation like to start your journey with the API security. So I think if you're looking for something that you can read through or maybe share with the team, this is a good document to share. It's very practical, very right to the point. So I just shared the link in the Zoom chat, and Chris, maybe you can share it in LinkedIn as well so that everybody can just download it.
All right. Yeah, we'll do that.
And that would be probably it for today. So
Yeah.
don't be shy and reach out to us if you want to unpack anything, if you have any questions, and obviously if you want to try the product out. Thank you, team. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
And thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.